Hello, this is Gonzalo Lira speaking to you live. This is what is it today? Today is Wednesday, April 6th, I believe. And this is live stream. I'm using StreamYards. So before I get going, do me a favor and just confirm that you guys can hear me properly. Hit me with a +333 if you guys can hear me properly. I'd appreciate it. Yeah, there isn't going to be any video because I'm figuring out how to run StreamYards on my phone, and I have the phone right in front of my face, so no video for you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so everything is audio is a little inconsistent. Okay. Thanks, Nicholas. Good to know. Loud and clear, you grand rascal. Well, very nice of you to say. And so, yeah, let me just explain a little bit. I'm going to be doing this broadcast for about 60 to 90 minutes, something like that. And after that, I'm going to be taking questions only from my webinar tier supporters on Patreon, which is something that I've promised them. Because I don't have access to my regular gear, I'm not able to do the regular broadcasts for my Patreon subscribers. And so I'm giving them that bonus of being able to come on board and talk live and ask questions or make comments live at the end of the broadcast. Do keep in mind the Patreon supporters are watching it on a separate stream. And if you come on, remember, you're going to be public. Okay. So if you don't want your name out there or anything like that, change it to a pseudonym right now. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about this is a complicated issue. This is it's called Vanished, this episode, right? There are people who seem to have vanished. And I think it's very important to pay attention to those people who have vanished in our society. They vanished because they are important members of our society, but all of a sudden, poof, they're gone. They've been memory holed, they've disappeared. And there's nothing worse than somebody who has disappeared. I would argue that it's worse, especially for the people who love you, for you to disappear than to die. Because if you die, the people who love you will know that your life ended. It's tragic. Of course it is. But if a person just simply disappears, there's always, you're always wondering what happened to them. And I can think of nothing worse than that fate. Ian McEwan wrote a famous novel called The Child in Time, about that, a child who disappeared and was never found again, and the effects of that on the parents. It's a horrible, horrible story. Very good novel. And I always think of Silverweed. He was a character in a novel called Watership Down, a novel I read as a boy, and a fantastical novel, just really good. It's about rabbits. It's about these rabbits who are searching for a new home. And as they traverse, the English countryside, they come across this warren of rabbits that they're a little bit. It's a little bit weird at first. They don't understand what's going on. This warren of rabbits seems to have this great life. They live on this farm, and the farmer gives them food. And so all these rabbits seem to have, the perfect life. They get food and they just hang out and stuff, but they're all kind of crazy. They're all mildly insane and just like weird, like something's off with them. And there's this one rabbit called Silverweed who writes these poems, who sings these songs about the shining wire. And you, the reader, I mean, the whole point of the novel Watership Down is that you, as the human being, understand what's going on better than the rabbits do, because the rabbits aren't that clever. They're rabbits. But you, as the reader, as a human being, you see what's going on. And Silverweed, this most insane of all the rabbits of this warren, well, he's writing these odes to the lure that the farmer uses to snatch rabbits. Because what's going on is that the farmer is giving food to the rabbits, sure, and the rabbits are hanging around there on his farm. But every once in a while, he'll snatch one of the rabbits and eat it in a stew. Okay. And so the rabbits that remain, they're going insane because, new rabbits are born, of course, but all of a sudden a rabbit will disappear, and nobody will talk about it. And the fact that they don't talk about the rabbit that's disappeared drives them insane. And I think that that happens to human beings. I think it happens when we realize that somebody has vanished and we have no idea where they are. And we sort of like look away. We don't want to look, because if we look, we have to figure out what happened to them, what's going on. If they suddenly just vanish, we have to ask ourselves, is there some farmer with a lure that snatched them, that grabbed that lure around their necks and just yanked them away and ate them? Of course, not ate them literally, but devoured them in some horrifying manner. You see what I'm saying? I mean, do you understand the point of this? It's not a trivial point. And on the contrary, I'd argue it's a very, very serious point. See, it's perfectly fine, and in fact, it's natural for someone to end their lives. Not end in suicide. I mean that their lives come to an end. They die. They die by accident, perhaps, or by illness. They die of old age. Sometimes they die young in some tragic car wreck or something like that. But it's natural. It's natural for people's lives to end. And if their lives end too early, we mourn them. If their lives are complete and they die of old age, we celebrate them. But it's natural. But when a person disappears, when they just vanish off the face of the earth, it deeply, deeply frightens us. Because it's like not merely that they just disappeared, but their whole existence and everything they've done has been just wiped off the face of the earth. And sometimes there are very powerful interests that want us to forget about somebody who has vanished. And they have their own reasons for this. And so I'm going to examine in this broadcast a few people who have disappeared as of late. People who have disappeared and whom I think we should be paying attention to. I'll tell you who I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a woman who was a nurse and who got an injection. And then shortly after that, she fainted. And then shortly after that, she was never seen again. I'm going to tell you about an army general who has vanished. And the small clues of his remaining existence seem very, very sketchy. I'm going to talk to you about a man and his adult daughter, and how they were poisoned, and how their poisoning has had enormous geopolitical effects, and how these enormous geopolitical effects have been reverberating ever since this happened 4 years ago. And yet these two crucial people have completely vanished. I'm going to talk to you about a journalist here in Ukraine, a man you've never heard of before, who would do broadcasts like mine, talking about different stuff. And then all of a sudden, he disappeared for a bit. He appeared and had to do another broadcast where he basically refuted everything he'd said before. And then he vanished forever for good. And then I'm going to talk about a politician here in Ukraine who called for the boys to come back home. I mean, who would be against that? We all want the soldiers to come back home. We don't want them to be fighting. But because of this man was kidnapped, he was brutalized, and he has disappeared. And I'm going to be talking about them. And I'm going to be talking about the fact that we don't talk about these people who have disappeared. And we say, oh, don't talk about him. You're a conspiracy theorist. Don't talk about him. Don't talk about her. She's fine. She's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong. You're just making it up. She just doesn't want the attention. He's in some conference in Turkey. Oh, the old guy and his adult daughter, they're perfectly fine. They're living somewhere, They're like living on a farm. and they get to play with other puppies. You know that story, right? Of like how parents, when they have a dog and the dog is rather old, and the parents don't want to tell the children that they have to put the dog down. And so they tell the children, oh, yeah, we took Rex to this farm out in the country, far away, and he's having a wonderful time. And he's playing out in the fields with the other dogs there, and they're having a wonderful, wonderful time. And it's bullshit. Of course, it's the lie we tell children because we don't want to tell them the truth. The truth is that the dog was so old that we had to put him down. And we make up the story that the dog is in some farm and having a wonderful time. Oh, an air raid siren. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Yeah, we tell these stories, to make the little kids feel better. Now, it's understandable with parents and an old dog, and you don't want the young children to suffer and feel so bad and cry. You understand that, right? But what about the adults? The adults who have disappeared. Are we supposed to say, oh, yeah, they went to a farm. They're playing with the other people who disappeared too, and they're all so happy? Is that what we're supposed to do? Okay, let me get started. Now, the first person I want to talk about, okay, we don't know where this man is. Now, his name is Roger Cloutier. He is a lieutenant general of the United States Army. Now, there is indisputable evidence that this man was, I'm sorry about the air raid siren. There's nothing I can do about it. You're just going to have to put up with it. Yes, I know. They're sirens. It's no big deal. Okay, they happen all the time. Okay. There's a war going on. I mean, come on, what the hell do you think? No, there isn't going to, well, hopefully no boom. But anyway, Roger Cloutier, let me focus on this. I want to tell you the story, and I'm not going to pay attention to chat anymore because you guys are very funny, but yeah. And I'll get to Tiffany Dover in just a second. Now, the way I'm going to structure this is I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these characters, and then I'm going to circle back in Jen Psaki's famous phrase. See, Roger Cloutier is this 3-star general, lieutenant general of the U.S. Army. He looks like Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. Big guy, bald. The only difference is that he's smiling. He's like a gung-ho, take charge kind of guy. You know the type, right? Now, what's going on, what people have noticed, okay, is that this gentleman is nowhere to be found. And his LinkedIn, he's supposed to be at some conference in Turkey. And of course, Turkey is right next door from Ukraine. Look at a map. I mean, mentally it seems far away, but geographically it's right next door to Mariupol, rather. And so Roger Cloutier is supposed to be in this conference in Turkey. 13 hours, or no, well, now it's 18 hours ago at around midnight, my time, it's 6 p.m. here. He posted a reply to somebody who asked about where he was. And this somebody was sort of like a fact checker. And this fact checker said, oh, okay, so now that I know where you are, I'm going to tell everybody that it's disinformation. And this was leaked out, and it looked weird. And you can find it on my Telegram channel. It looked all kinds of weird because it was like a fact checker on LinkedIn getting in touch with him. And of course, LinkedIn, especially for a 3-star general, senior officer, he's going to have, people in his staff who are going to take care of his social media, his LinkedIn profile and all that stuff. He probably didn't write that. I mean, he probably never wrote anything on his LinkedIn. Why would he? Why would he bother, take the time? You see what I'm saying? A senior officer like that, he's got a lot of other fish to fry rather than messing around with his LinkedIn profile. And so there's no question that somebody else has access to that just because he's a senior officer, okay? I mean, like as a when you're in business, sometimes you'll have some what you call it, some social media stuff that you'll just delegate to somebody on your staff, your assistant or your second assistant or whomever, because you don't have the time. Mhm. So somebody else indisputably has access to his LinkedIn profile. So it's not clear that if he answered it or not, he indisputably helped train Ukrainian fighters. Now, NATO was training 4 battalions a year, 4 Ukrainian battalions a year. They were training them up to NATO standards in terms of tactics, in terms of communication, command and control, everything, and of course, weapons. So the whole point of this training is that, see, NATO operates on the concept of interoperability. That is, you want to be able to take a battalion or a regiment from one country, pull it out, and plug it into the army of another country. Say like a German platoon being able to take it out and plug it into an Italian battalion without any problem. I didn't mean to do that. That sounded stupid, but you see what I'm saying. And so the Ukrainian soldiers, at a rate of 4 battalions a year, were being trained to NATO standards. And he was one of those men who was doing that training. He was, of course, supervising that training. And there are lots of pictures of him in Ukraine, lots of pictures of him with senior officers of the Ukrainian armed forces. And right now he's gone. And 3 days ago, people started wondering, where is this general? And 18 hours ago, he posted this reply on LinkedIn to a message on LinkedIn from a fact checker. And the message was very short. It was just, I'm perfectly fine. If you have any questions, direct yourself to, and he gave the email address of some Pentagon, public relations official. And that was it. And so we don't really know if that's true or not. That's Roger Cloutier, and that's happening right now. We do not know where he is. Mm-hmm. Now, the other person whom we don't know where she is Tiffany Dover. And some of you who know that every time I do a live stream, I ask people to put in the comment section, where is Tiffany Dover? Because I don't want her name to be forgotten. Where is Tiffany Dover? And I'd ask you now to write it out. Write out, where is Tiffany Dover? It's very important. Tiffany Dover was this nurse in Tennessee. She was a mother, a wife. She had these beautiful, beautiful blue eyes, long brown hair. She seemed like the nicest person, somebody that you'd really like to have as your nurse. She seemed very kind, very gentle. And in December of 2020, she was at her Tennessee hospital, and she gave she didn't give it herself, but rather she was a part of a press release, a media event that showed, how, you should take the vaccine and how effective the vaccine was and how easy it was to take it and how it was no big deal. And she took the vaccine on camera, and she gave a little speech before she took the vaccine. She took the vaccine and then gave another little speech. Some other people talked, and the media was filming everything. And about 15 minutes after she took the vaccine, she started feeling a little woozy just as she was talking. And all of a sudden, she just started feeling just not herself. And all of a sudden, she just fainted, dead away, right there in front of the cameras. And she was caught by one of the doctors there, and they gently laid her down, and they started to see what was wrong with her. And the camera panned away, which I always found so incredibly creepy, because there was one camera focused on her real tight. You could see her real good. It was like a medium shot. And then all of a sudden, when she faints, the camera pulls back, zooms out a little bit to see everything, and sees the doctors like going on top of all these white lab coat guys go on her. They look like dogs on scraps or something like that. But of course, it was very serious. They were trying to help her, of course. But the camera pans away. It's creepy as all get out. And the thing is, see, Tiffany Dover has never been seen alive since then. Nobody knows what's happened to her. And she had a fairly active Instagram account. And since then, she hasn't posted anything. And there's like some random picture of her that floated around saying, oh, this is her. But it was somebody in a mask and it didn't really look like her, because her eyes are rather remarkable. They're like these pale blue eyes, but they're very bright and very blue. I mean, unmistakable eyes. And the person that they started showing a picture of, it was the one picture, and it didn't look like her. And it was sort of like, oh, this kind of looks like her. And then they pushed it a little bit, and then that failed, and then you never heard about it again. And there's been all kinds of stuff that I've seen personally. Like, for instance, the social media account of her husband, and it says that he's single now, not divorced, single. Huh? And, there's some stuff about what you call it, an undertaker that announced a death, but then that was removed. It's gone, memory hold. Nobody knows where she is. And a lot of people say that she's perfectly fine. She's still working at the hospital. Yeah, she's still working at that hospital. She's just media shy. She doesn't want to do any media because she's a very private person, because she went to the farm and she's playing with other puppies there and she's having a wonderful time, and so she doesn't really want to be disturbed. I mean, come on. She was a woman who was doing this media event to tell everybody about the vaccine, how safe it was. I mean, a woman like that who has no trouble being in front of a bunch of cameras and a bunch of people and, giving an explanation of something that she knows. And I mean, I'm not saying that she was like somebody crazy for attention, but she seemed like a grown-up adult woman who could handle herself in front of media. She seemed like a very experienced nurse, very capable, a young woman. I mean, I forgot her age, but she must have been like around 30. And, a woman who would not fear the press. Now, that's Tiffany Dover's story. And she has not been seen, indisputably, she has not been seen since December of 2020. Now, some people have tried to push like some pictures of her, like some Christmas pictures, but it was rapidly established that those pictures were from 2019, not 2021, as people were alleging. And you have to ask yourself, who are these people who are alleging that these pictures are from 2021 when they were actually from 2 years before and 1 full year before she took the vaccine? Who are these people who are pushing the story that she's perfectly fine? She's at the farm having a wonderful time with all the other people, all the other puppies, all the other nurses, all the other people who've disappeared. Hold that thought. Sergei and Yulia Skripal are very interesting people. Sergei and Yulia. Sergei was a Russian dissident, and he was living in the UK. And he is alleged to have been poisoned with Novichok, which is a nerve agent that acts extremely quickly. It acts extremely quickly, and it causes death or all kinds of neurological problems. I mean, it's a nerve agent, okay? It's a chemical weapon. And when this happened 4 years ago, Theresa May in the United Kingdom automatically pointed the finger at Russia. Russia did it. Mr. Putin, big bad Mr. Putin did it. And everybody sort of like said, well, I guess so. This guy was a dissident. He had some run-ins and such with Putin. He was like a double agent, basically. He had been with the FSB, the secret police of Russia. Not the secret police exactly, but for purposes of this conversation, let's leave it at that. And he'd defected and moved to England, and he was spilling all the secrets to MI6, which is the secret police of Great Britain. And all of a sudden, he's poisoned. And other people were poisoned too, interestingly enough, because this happened in early March of 2018, just about 4 years ago. Oh, a little over 4 years ago. And what happened was that a sergeant who was the first on the scene, he also got poisoned, unfortunately. And interestingly enough, like 3, 4 months later, a random couple near that area also got poisoned with Novichok. Very interesting. Now, here's what's interesting about Sergei and Yulia. Yulia was the grown daughter of Sergei. They were sitting on this park bench when they were affected, overcome by this poison. Mm. And they have not been seen. Well, Sergei has not been seen, verifiably seen, since the 4th of March, 2018, 4 years ago, when he suffered this attack. And he has not been heard from since the 26th of June, 2019. And that's about coming up on 3 years ago. That was the last time he was heard. It was a phone call. Now, Yulia, she hasn't been seen since May of 2018. And she hasn't been heard from since November of 2020. They're just disappeared. I mean, they suffered this this attack, this poisoning, which is horrible. It's horrifying. And they survived, lucky them, but they haven't been seen. I mean, not even heard from in quite some time. Sergei Skripal has not been seen alive in 4 years. And Julia pretty much the same. And they've only been heard from, well, like I said, Sergei back in June of 2019, that's coming up on 3 years. And Yulia since November of 2020, that's a year and 4 months. A year and 5 months. Nobody knows where they are. Maybe they went to some farm where all the other Russian dissidents and turncoats live. I don't know. You tell me. Or maybe they're in that farm with Tiffany Dover. Now, what's interesting about these cases is that, see, when you start looking at the Sergei and Yulia Skripal cases, you start to realize all kinds of weirdness going on. The first thing that struck me, at least, was that, see, they were allegedly poisoned with this Novichok nerve agent. Now, this stuff is supposed to act practically instantaneously. I mean, like seconds to minutes. And yet, it seems from the point that they were poisoned to the moment that it actually affected them was about 3 hours. How the hell did that happen? I mean, this stuff is supposed to like kill you and kill you dead. I mean, this nerve agent, right? It's supposed to be, you know, weapons grade nerve agent. It's supposed to be something to take seriously, something that'll scare you. Something that takes 3 hours to affect you. Well, that's not very scary now, is it? And so how did that happen exactly? And why is it that some random couple 3 months later was affected by the same poisoning? One of them died. And just some random couple out of nowhere affected by the same poisoning, a British couple. Okay. And they had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with this. And so you're like, what's going on? And where are these people? They're supposed to have survived. Where are they? Now, here, I'm going to talk about two people who are Ukrainian. And these Ukrainian people, oh man. The first is Dmitry Yangirov. Dmitry, you know, he's about 3 years older than me, right? But, you know, I'm realizing that I'm 54 and I look fairly good for my age because I don't drink. And it's not like a big philosophical reason, okay? It's just, I get sleepy when I drink, you know, I fall asleep. I mean, I enjoy having a drink, but I'll inevitably, you know, if I have like one, even like a very weak scotch on the rocks, I mean, I'm talking like, you know, just like, you know, like a on a tall glass, you know, maybe a finger's thickness of scotch, a bunch of ice, and the rest of it filled with water. It's more like, you know, alcoholic tea than a real drink, right? I'll fall asleep, you know, just a little bit of alcohol, and I just like instantly fall asleep. You know, sometimes it's kind of embarrassing, you know. And also what happens to me is that over the years I've realized that, you know, when I drink at parties and stuff, I feel like bloated, I feel crappy. But if I drink fruit juice, I feel great. And so ever since, I don't know, early 2000s. Whenever I go to a party, I just drink fruit juice. Yeah, again, no big philosophical thing. I just feel better, you know? And so because of it, you know, I feel I look fairly decent for my age, but this poor gentleman Jangarov, oh boy, you know, he's overweight, pretty much bald, and the hair he's got is very thin and totally gray. And, you know, you just one look and you're like, yeah, this guy's a heavy drinker, right? And you know, a hard charging journalist. And he discovered the internet, and he did his show in Ukrainian, talking about the government, you know, blasting the government, you know, being a good old fashioned, you know, meat and potatoes kind of journalist. You know, the government sucks and they're screwing us over, and we got to fight these guys, you know, that kind of journalist. I mean, somebody I can get behind, you know, I mean, like somebody that I could like respect, right? A rabble rouser. And that's all good. But all of a sudden, after the war started, he just disappeared. And then he popped up again to do another video. And his fans said that he looked very different. It was nothing obvious. He didn't have like a broken nose or anything like that. No black eye, but he just looked different. His demeanor was different. His attitude was different. And he did a short video where he basically denounced just about everything he had done before. And after that, poof, gone. Gone. On my Twitter feed, I'm still, you know, deplatformed on that. And of course, I'm going to tie it all into deplatforming in just a little bit. On Twitter, where I'm on suspension for a week, it ends in a couple of days. The pinned tweet is the name of Dmitry Jangarov and some other people who've also been disappeared or they've been killed. You know, like Viktor Struk, the mayor of a small town in the Lugansk area, I believe, Lugansk Oblast, I believe, or it might have been Donetsk, one or the other. You know, he was kidnapped from his home and just gone for 2 days. Nobody knew where he was. Kidnapped from in front of his family, his wife, you know, just taken away. And 2 days later, they found him dead, shot through the heart. At least his family knows what happened to him. Tragic though that fate was. But they don't have the uncertainty that, for instance, Nestor Shufrik family has. Shufrik is a member of the Ukrainian parliament. And he was considered pro-Russian, insufficiently pro-Ukraine. And he was kidnapped by thugs, brutal thugs, despicable men. These bastards actually put a selfie of themselves holding him. This small, older man in his 60s, and this big, hulking, fat, bearded piece of shit goon holding him by the neck with a knife right up to his throat and smiling at the selfie. You know, look, Ma, look who I kidnapped. Yeah. And then later, this poor man was trussed up like a turkey, blindfolded, and delivered to the SBU, the Ukrainian secret police. Mm. And there's a video of some SBU officer, you know, haranguing him, abusing him, manhandling him on camera, calling him a piece of shit, telling him that he was going to see what was what. And then the video ends. And what happened to Nestor Shufrik? No one knows. He just disappeared. And see, these are the, what is it, 2, 4, 6 people. And they all disappeared. They all got silenced for different reasons. And what's interesting is to understand the reasons for each. The reasons why powerful people want them hidden, want them gone. You see, Tiffany Dover, that's the easy one. Tiffany Dover, poor thing. She, in the goodness of her heart and with the sincere desire to help other people, the sincere notion that, you know, oh, come on, they've tested this product, it's perfectly safe. They would never, you know, want to inject billions of people with this stuff if it was dangerous. They're not like that. Come on, that's conspiracy theory nonsense, she must have been thinking. And so she was probably delighted to show people, out of the goodness of her heart, that there was nothing to worry about. And she talked about the vaccine. She sat there and got the shot in her arm, and then she kept on talking until she passed out. And she hasn't been seen since then. And you have to ask yourself, what happened? Well, it's pretty obvious. Something horrible must have happened insofar as a side effect of this vaccine. I mean, come on, we're all grown-ups. If you take a shot and 15 minutes later you pass out, chances are pretty good the shot had something to do with it. Come on. It wasn't that she was struck by lightning. No. She took a medication, and shortly thereafter, she fainted. And then later, it was like, oh, no, I always faint whenever I get an injection. That was the excuse. Okay, which didn't make any sense at all. I mean, like, I know people who, when they take injections or whatever, or any kind of medical procedure, they faint away out of fear and stress, but they faint away right at the moment that it happens. They don't faint 15 minutes later. It doesn't work that way. And I know this personally. Somebody who is intimate tended to faint and have a very strong emotional reaction to any kind of medical procedure, including injections, no matter how minor or trivial. Okay. And I had to hold this person's hand and tell her that it was going to be all right multiple times. And I saw her faint dead away at an injection that was perfectly, no big deal. Okay. So I know what that kind of reaction is because I saw it many times personally. Okay. Tiffany Dover fainting 15 minutes later, that doesn't qualify. No. But of course, if something happened to her, something horrible, perhaps she died, perhaps she had some sort of reaction to it that left her incapacitated, perhaps permanently incapacitated. Who knows? We'll never know. But what we do realize, because we're grown-ups and we can make the obvious inference, is that something horrible happened to her and some very powerful people decided to cover it up. And some very powerful people spent a lot of money on public relations firms to quiet it down, to not make a big deal about it, to basically tell the whole world, shh, it's okay. She's at a farm and she's playing and she's having a wonderful time at that farm far, far away. You wonder if that expression, she bought the farm or he bought the farm, does it come from that? You got to wonder. I mean, I've actually never thought to myself, where does the expression, he bought the farm, where does it come from? Maybe it comes from that. They went to that farm and they're just playing. They're just running around and playing, frolicking in the sun. You think that that's happening to poor Tiffany Dover? You think that she's frolicking in the sun in some beautiful farm somewhere, far from her family, far from her parents and her children and her husband? You think that that's what's happening to her? Huh? Now, Roger Cloutier, it's interesting, because Tiffany Dover, they don't want you to ask where she is, because if you start asking where she is, you start asking, what happened to her. You start to ask, well, if this horrible thing happened to her, whatever that horror might be, why did it happen to her? And then you start digging a little bit and you say, of course, this horrible, horrible injection, this shot from hell, and they knew. I mean, come on. Why do they want to hide those papers for 75 years? All that documentation. They wanted to hide it for 75 years when every person who is an adult today would be safely dead by then. And they knew. And they've had to hire thousands of people, apparently, to shut up everybody who points out the horror of this shit. Tiffany Dover, man. She was right there. We all saw her. And everybody forgot her. Everybody wanted to look away. Everybody wanted to be Silverweed. They didn't want to remember her because the shining wire had grabbed her. Now, Roger Cloutier, now he's an interesting character. This 3-star general, I mean, just looking at the pictures of the guy, like I said, go look him up. He looks like, Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now, all bald, big, beefy, I mean, well, Brando in that picture was just fat. But this Cloutier guy, he looks like he bench pressed about 1,000 pounds, I mean, he looked big, tough, strong, nobody to mess with. And he looked like a friendly guy, actually, always smiling, very self-confident, he must have been, he looked like a fun guy, to tell you the truth. Now, this is the story, okay, that I'm about to tell you. The story is, see, he hasn't been seen in something like 4 days. And the rumors that have been coming out and getting louder all the time is that he is in Mariupol. Now, for those of you who don't know, who are coming in late to the party, see, the Russians surrounded the town of Mariupol. Mariupol was the stronghold of the Azov battalion, these neo-Nazi crazies who were trained by NATO. Because that's what it basically was, man. I mean, and it's not just a battalion. It's more like a division in terms of size. And they were spread out not just in their own little unit, but also spread out throughout the Ukrainian armed forces. The rumor is, or not the rumor, but the estimate is, of informed sources, is that roughly 1 out of every 10 soldiers was a die-hard, ideologically motivated neo-Nazi. Ukrainian, racial purity, we hate Russians, all ethnic Russians, even Ukrainian Russians, we hate them with a passion, that kind of situation, right? And so what happened with the Azov battalion is that the Russians encircled them in what are known as cauldrons. They're basically pincer movements, encirclement movements. And they pinned them down in Mariupol. And they started out with something like 15,000 men, fighters, 15,000 fighters, okay? And the Russians just ground them down, just chewed them up and spit them out. And the last, something like 3,000 men, 4,000 men, nobody's quite sure. They're all in Azovstal, the Azovstal Steelworks. Now, this installation is the largest steelworks in the former Soviet Union. It's huge. It's this huge city within a city, right on the shore of the Black Sea. And the Russians have it completely surrounded, and they started out with something like 40,000 troops to really grind down these people. And now they've detached something like 35,000 of them, 30,000, something like that, to send them up north to the other big battle that's going to happen in Kramatorsk. And they've left a detachment of something like 10, 12,000 Russians who've surrounded Azovstal. And they're getting ready to just grind them down, okay? Now, the rumor that's coming out of the last survivors of the original 15,000 Azov battalion men, it's like I said, they call them the Azov battalion, but in terms of actual fighting strength, they're closer to a division. They are a division. Well, anyway, the point is that, see, these men, there are something between 3,000 and 4,000 who are still alive and not captured. And apparently, the Russians aren't really capturing them because the Georgians, for instance, have already said on video that they're not capturing any Russian POWs. They're killing them all, which is pretty fucking nasty. And the bodies and videos that have emerged, that pretty much proves it. All kinds of atrocities are going on. I mean, these guys, when they fight, they don't screw around. It's this really nasty shit. Anyway, the point in Azovstal, right? These 3,000 to 4,000 men have found refuge, and they're completely surrounded, completely cut off. They have no chance of being resupplied. Food, water, ammunition, it's all running low. They don't have any gasoline. They don't have any transportation. It's over pretty much. And they know that they're going to get no mercy from the Russians. So it's just going to be just a nasty, nasty fight, to the bitter end. Now, here is where it gets really weird. Okay. President Emmanuel Macron has, French president, of course, has contacted Russian President Vladimir Putin at least twice, trying to convince him to set up a humanitarian corridor to evacuate the men at Azovstal. Now, why would the French president, of all people, give a shit about some battle happening in the guts of this conflict? Why would he insist on creating some sort of humanitarian corridor? Doesn't make much sense now, does it? Mm-hmm. I mean, you all who are watching this, how many of you think that this makes any sense at all? Huh? Yeah, somebody said, and basically here, let me just put this. Oops, not this one. Sorry about that. No, this one. Yeah, William Martin. Yeah, that seems to be what happened. Putin gave him a big fuck you very much and didn't establish any kind of corridor. Mm-hmm. And well, Macron called the second time. I mean, Putin said the first time no, and then he called him a second time. Mm-hmm. The timeline when this happened is unclear. Okay. But the French president really, really wants to get somebody out of there. And you know who else wants to get somebody out of there? The Ukrainians. This seems to be the count. I might have miscounted. Okay, so I'll just tell you what I believe is the accurate figure, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm trying to be accurate. I'm not trying to make any mistakes. But apparently, there have been 7 helicopters that have flown in to evacuate people from Azovstal. 7 Ukrainian helicopters that they can ill afford to lose have flown in, and of those 7, 4 have been shot down. Now, of course, it's not clear as to whether it was 7 individual ones, because it was like on several opportunities. So it could have been, that we're repeat counting a couple. It could be that we're repeat counting some of the ones that got shot down. Okay, but at least 7 have been counted, and 4 of those were shot down. Now, these helicopters, they're not big. They can carry, a handful of men. Mm-hmm. I mean, these helicopter gunships, they're heavily armored and they've got weapons and all that, but they can't carry that many men. Certainly they can't carry 4,000 men. Okay, they can carry a handful. I don't know how many, but if you told me between 6 and 12, that sounds reasonable, right? And 20 tops, apart of course from the crew of the helicopter, right? I mean, these things aren't that big. I mean, I've flown in the helicopter, actually surprisingly small, right? And so why would the Ukrainians risk their helicopters and be okay with losing 4? Who is there? Who is there, or what is there? And there's all kinds of talk coming out. I mean, a lot of rumors that it's NATO personnel. There's also something else. Pepe Escobar, who's on Twitter, Pepe Escobar. I'll put links to this like later on when I post the recording, right, of this broadcast. But Pepe Escobar yesterday put out 3 tweets, and Pepe Escobar is a fairly judicious character. He's a journalist, specializing in Asia stuff. He's very friendly with the Russians. I don't know if he's paid by them or anything of the sort, but whenever I read him, his takes are fairly sensible. And he doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to say something half-assed. This is a subjective perception. Take it for what it's worth. But Pepe Escobar says that there's something down there in Azovstal, in the 8th floor underground. Okay, and that the locals in Mariupol knew that there was something horrible there, and that if you got snatched to be taken down there, you weren't coming back. I mean, like a real kind of hellhole, something horrible going on down there. Okay, now you got to understand this Azovstal thing. Okay, you think it's like a factory? No, think of it like a city within a city. It's a huge installation. Mm-hmm. You look at it on a map and you're like, holy shit, this is fucking huge. You look at it like Patrick Lancaster, whom I've said I admired tremendously before, and I'll repeat it here. He showed some video of it. It's like goddamn big, man. You know, it is a city within a city. Okay. And you can easily see 3,000, 4,000 men just vanishing in that huge installation. And you have no idea how far down it goes, because this shit was built during, Stalin's time back in the 50s, man. So over the decades, God knows what they've built down there, what secrets it's holding. And everybody wants to get there. The French want a humanitarian corridor. The Ukrainians sacrificed 4 helicopters to get to it. One of the helicopters, they shot it down over land. The others, they apparently shot it out over the sea. But one of them, they shot it down over land. And the Russians, of course, being Russian, what they did was they spotted the helicopter. They waited for the helicopter to pick up whoever was picking up. And then once it took off, that's when they shot it down. It's pretty fucking cruel, if you ask me. But, that's life. That's war. What happened was that the one that they shot down over ground, 2 of the crew survived. And of course, they've got the bodies of all the others. What's going on there? And of course, in the West, they're studiously ignoring the story. They're just ignoring it. They're memory holding it. They're not talking about it at all. See? You always want to be paying attention to the stuff that people don't talk about. Because when they talk about stuff, they're excited about it. They think they're happy with it, Oh, what I did the other day, I ran in the track competition and I came in first, in the 100-meter dash, it was like so fantastic and I ran so fast. And yeah, people talk about that shit. They talk about the happy stuff. They don't talk about, oh yeah, I got busted for selling weed. They don't talk about that, do they? No. How many times have you gone to some cocktail party, right? And you say, hi, my name is Bob, and, I got arrested for embezzling from my firm 10 years ago. Do you ever hear that at some cocktail party? No, of course not. People hide the shit that they're ashamed of. And they're hiding this Cloutier fellow. And the fact is they're saying that he's in Turkey. And the thing is, see, there's been this growing sense that, he's not around. And it'd be no trick at all to produce him. I mean, if he is in Turkey, all he has to do is just show up on some, TV and say, here I am in Turkey, some random video. And all he has to say is, here I am in Turkey and, the baseball score of last night's game. And that's it. The end of the rumor. Okay. I mean, nobody would bother with this shit anymore. Yeah. Like, for instance, there was this Russian general that the Ukrainians were claiming was dead, right? And, he wasn't dead. And the Russians didn't, the Russians being Russian, they didn't bother confirming or denying. They just ignored the question altogether. And also, the Russians have this, this policy whereby they actually don't name the generals in charge of different stuff. And if one gets killed, he's just automatically replaced by a second in command, and it's like totally anonymous and machine-like. It's just the way that they proceed. It's only after the war is over that's when they start saying, "Oh, it was this guy, and we gave him a bunch of medals because he was aces." Okay, that's how the Russians have always behaved insofar as war. And during combat, they don't say shit. But this general was supposed to be dead, and the Chechens, right? When they linked up around Mariupol, the general appeared, and he had a big laugh about it, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be dead, but here I am, just like Jesus." Everybody had a laugh, and that was that, and end of story, right? This Cloutier fellow, he could just pop up, make a fool of me and everybody else who's been wondering about this guy, just by popping up and say, "No, Mr. Lira, I'm perfectly fine. Here I am in Turkey, or in the Pentagon, or wherever, Tahiti, for all I care," and that'd be that. Now, I'm not saying that the guy is down there. I don't know where he is, and that's the point of this. Disappearing people. See, why do you disappear somebody? Why do you silence people? Why do you deplatform them? On YouTube, right? Lots of people have been deplatformed. On Twitter, lots of people have been silenced. And of course, you notice the big ones like Donald Trump or somebody, right? You notice like Jordan Peterson a few years ago, like in 17, I think it was. All of a sudden, his channel on YouTube was just gone. And everybody noticed, of course, and it was quickly reinstated. And, sorry, said YouTube, like as if they actually were sorry, which is laughable. But anyway, see, you notice when the big guys disappear, but when the not so big guys disappear, you kind of like don't notice it and you become like silverweed. You start to realize that somebody's missing, but you don't quite know who. And you don't quite dare ask who because you start wondering, well, will I be next? Because that's what's going on with Silverweed. In Watership Down, Silverweed, the rabbit who wrote those poems about the shining wire, what's going on is that he's become insane because he's wondering if he'll be next, if he will be disappeared. And you have to ask yourself, if you're living in a democracy, this vaunted liberal democracy, that human rights and all that other good crap, right? Well, if you're disappearing people, are you really free in such a society? If you're disappearing people, aren't you driving the others who remain, driving them a little bit insane? Because that's what happens, when all of a sudden the people around you start vanishing. Drives you a little bit nuts. And that was one of the great points of the Gulag Archipelago. It was, I don't think that Solzhenitsyn was thinking about that aspect specifically, but emerges in the book. That how it drove people a little bit insane, how people would just suddenly vanish, and they'd be shipped off to the Gulag for 10 years for some trivial nonsense. And it wears on the soul. And here in Ukraine, like there are a lot of people who have disappeared, and I've noticed that it wears on my soul too, because I'm here and I'm very worried that something might happen to me, and it wears on my soul, no question. And there have been times as of late that I've been very, very low, and I've been trying to figure out why. Why am I so low? And I'm not going to lie to you. Some days I've realized retrospectively that I was kind of like losing my fucking mind. And it's important to figure out why, to understand why. It's all about Silverweed. See, because when people get killed, that's tragic. It's heartbreaking. But you know what happened. When people just vanish, that's when the little insects of your imagination can run riot and can lead you to believe anything, everything. You start to freak out. You start to go insane. I'm deeply, deeply concerned about Tiffany Dover. Not so much about her fate, which I certainly care about, but the fact that she's been disappeared, memory hold. Because the fact that nobody talks about her, it adds a little bit to the insanity of the West. Just a tiny little bit, almost immeasurable, but it adds because we kind of like collectively know she's gone. She's just disappeared, and we can't talk about her because if we talk about her, we're conspiracy theorists. If we talk about her, we might get some punitive measure inflicted on us for just talking about her, for saying, where is Tiffany Dover? Her name becomes poison. And that's scary if you ask me. The people of the West, you have to realize that your society has become completely perverted. And I, for one, realize that it's been a gradual process, but at this point, I want nothing to do with it because, see, it's just all lies. It's all lies. And the sense that you can just be disappeared and be gone forever because You can be deplatformed because what you say doesn't fit the narrative. You can be deplatformed because they just don't like you. You can be disappeared because you suffer ill effects from some medication. You can be disappeared because your existence is politically uncomfortable, politically messy, because that's what's going on with Roger Cloutier, right? His existence, his very being, is now an inconvenience. Mhm. I mean, they would prefer either to extract him and have him safe and sound back in the Pentagon, or to have him just be completely incinerated and no evidence of his existence. Either one would be good for these people because they don't care about poor Roger Cloutier. I mean, like, let's assume that he is in the bowels of this steelworks, right? They don't give a shit about him. All they care about is the embarrassment that his existence or his location is to them, and they want to avoid that. They don't care about him. They don't care about Tiffany Dover and the heartbreak of her family. They just threw money at them, probably. I mean, that's my guess if I had to guess. They threw money at them and they said, shut up about it. And here's a bunch of cash and just shut up. But they don't care about Tiffany Dover, what happened to her, the suffering that the events that transpired inflicted on her family. They just disappear. And it adds to our collective insanity. Silverweed. Whenever you hear these names, ask where they are. The Skripals, who are, I forgot to bring up the point about them that I should have. The whole Skripal thing, it was bullshit. The more you look into it, the more you realize that there's something all kinds of fishy going on. And the Russians didn't do squat, okay? It was definitely the Americans and the Brits, and God alone knows what they were up to, and God alone knows what the hell happened there. But it was definitely not the Russians. Oh no. I mean, the Russians probably wanted this guy dead, because the Russians have always been very clear about it. At least Putin has been very clear about it, that there's nothing worse than a turncoat. And I tend to agree. I certainly understand at least the notion that there's nothing worse than a turncoat, right? And this Sergei Skripal seemed to have been one, but that's not the point. The point is, see, there's no question that the Russians didn't look on him too fondly. But how he disappeared, how he got sick, the whole thing reeks to high heaven. And I'm not saying that the Russians are squeaky clean. I'm saying the Russians didn't do it insofar as the Skripal is concerned. Somebody else did it. Who? I don't know. But it wasn't the Russians. It was between the Americans and the Brits. And you can tell because of all the bullshit floating around this. The more you look at it, I'll post later some stuff that I came across that was really interesting about this. And you'll have to come up with your own conclusions about it. But anyway, the point. See, deplatforming, canceling people, the whole cancel culture thing, silencing people, disappearing them. It adds to our collective insanity. And just as bad as that, it adds to our ignorance about the world. And we have to fight it. Okay, that's all I have to say about this topic. So I'm going to figure out right now how to invite a bunch of people from my Patreon supporters to join me on this thing. Okay, I'm gonna change windows here. If I'm out for a bit, just be cool. I'll be back in a little bit. Hang on a second, so I can figure this bad boy out. Now, those of you on Patreon, I'm going to the Patreon post, and I'm posting there the the link for you to join. Yeah, sorry about that. Or, well, not sorry, but this is the way I'm doing this, okay? And I am, yes, hang on, and send notification. So, yes, I just posted to people on, what you call it, on Patreon, on my webinar tier subscribers on Patreon. I just posted the link to join. So, Lira for Prez. That's very kind of you, Augustus Omega. Although, all I have to say is stop smoking that dope. But thanks very much. That's very kind of you. Okay, so let me figure out. And where are the guests? You know, not there, not there, not there. I'm trying to figure this out. Layout. Yeah, we'll do that. Oops. I don't see where the guests appear. Oh, here we are. Okay, let's bring them on. Oh, so there they are. Wait, I'm adding you to the stream. Love to Spoke. How's it going?
Hey, Coach. Glad that you're hiding in one of those bunkers and no one's found you yet. So keep doing that.
Thanks very much.
Well, it's just funny that did you ever think for you that you'd be in this place like that? From your original content to where you are today. I mean, for you, I know you've been kind of dealing with the emotions of that, but how are you holding up?
Altogether, pretty well. Like I said, I'm not going to lie that there have been some ups and downs. I mean, downs really, but yeah, it's you got to roll with it. It's very exciting, okay, but at the same time, it's very tedious because you're just waiting around to see what happens, and so you're terrified, but there's nothing to do, and so I find it very, very difficult to concentrate. That's one of the big problems I'm having. Because I'm thinking with all this time on my hands, I ought to be able to concentrate, but I can't. I find it incredibly difficult to concentrate on something else. And so I'm trying to figure out a way because I want this time to be productive. And I actually want to accomplish things during this enforced, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's a little unnerving, but got to roll with it. What can I say?
Well, yeah. I mean, as long as the biggest thing is, you are technically in a war zone. So, and, being that I've been in Afghanistan, I mean, it's long periods of boredoms with very few moments of crazy excitement, but just keep your head down. And, like you said, these guys are doing some evil stuff, and it's amazing that no media is covering it unless it's the Ukraine are just the heroes. And I mean, and I don't know if you notice, like on some of the YouTube, like, because I watch a lot of like Second Amendment guys, and they are all, and I'm just like, whoa, but they are all just in that, like, oh my God, we could go in and just take out Russia. And it's like, guys, and it has really kind of blown my mind that some of these guys are just like, wow, just unreal, just the Kool-Aid that they've been drinking. And yeah, it's nuts.
Well, propaganda, it's a hell of a drug.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Everywhere you turn, it's like, Russia is just like wiped out. Like this column's wiped out. This column's wiped out. And it's like, I mean, sure, if you were to break it down, I'm sure it's the same footage just from different angles. But I mean, the amount of losses that they are showing is just like, and I think you said it in your last or one of your previous ones, they only started out with a certain amount of troops. At this point, they're almost in the negative the way that they're portraying everything. And
yeah. The Russians are down to negative 500,000, and Zelensky is about to invade Moscow. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and geez, it's just, but and yeah, unfortunately, this is when the world has been suckered into everything by the nanosecond and the instant updates, where wars took time. Like, this isn't like we were in Iraq or Afghanistan, we went in, destroyed everything, and then nothing kind of happened over, and the media just changed on. Like, we're now in the point where it's like, this is an ongoing thing. I mean, when the closest thing I can relate it to, like with my parent, like the Vietnam War, every night it was something that they watched with dinner. It wasn't just something that was like, oh, okay, it's over.
People have forgotten, or it's not that they've forgotten because it happened so long ago, but people have the misperception that like a blitzkrieg war happens in 2 days. But like when the Germans invaded France, it took them 6 weeks, and it's very small, the area. I mean, it's much smaller than Ukraine, and so you start to realize, it takes time for these tanks to move and to get. I mean, everything is in slow motion because it just takes time. But anyway, love to spoke. Great talking to you. And anything else on your mind before I bring on Juan Pablo?
No, just if you could talk about. Then I know this is more of the United States side, but with everything happening with Joe Biden, and just, I don't know if you saw that yesterday, Obama came back to the White House, and they basically like left Joe in a corner, and he just looked lost. Like,
I saw that. That was funny.
Do you? Yeah, I know, ridiculous. But do you think that? And I heard this from somewhere, but I've heard that they're basically going to be putting all this on Joe, the whole Hunter Biden laptop, the whole Ukraine thing. Impeach him with that, and then
I mean, it's pretty clear that they're positioning him as the fall guy for this whole situation, and so where did Juan Pablo go? He disappeared. They positioned him as the fall guy, and they're going to get rid of him, and it's going to be Kamala, but Kamala Harris is going to be the puppet of Obama. So that's where it's going. Anyway, love to spoke. Great talking to you. You take it easy, okay?
You take care, Coach.
Thanks. Bye. Hi, Bintran. How's it going?
Hey, it's good. I've been thinking about, like, are the people in charge in like a slave master mindset?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. There was noise in the background.
Oh, sorry. I'm actually taking a break from work right now for a few minutes.
Okay.
But I was thinking about, like, the slave master mindset, where they see us as the slaves and them as the masters.
Well, if they saw us as slaves, they wouldn't have the need to explain shit to us and convince us of lies. They just do whatever they want and ignore us. And so obviously we have power, but we haven't used that power against these individuals who are seeking to manipulate us and to lie to us by way of, and control us by way of their lies. So that's the thing. We have to realize that we're very powerful, but we're not using that power to get what we want. And what we want is just a more beneficial life for ourselves, and not be turned into the plaything of these individuals. Yeah.
Because it's been very bizarre the last 5 years.
Yeah, it has. It's pretty funny if you ask me. Anything else on your mind, man?
That was mainly it. I was just wondering, like, what's in their heads that makes them do these things,
Look, it's resentment and ego, most of all. Okay.
Oh.
They hate the Russians for long reasons. I mean, reasons that go long way back. Okay. And at the same time, they want to show that they're number one. Okay. Because you have to understand that the people who are in charge of stuff now in Western Europe and the United States, they didn't earn this power. They inherited it. And so like what happens is that when somebody earns the money, when somebody is like really rich, but he earned that money, he understands how much sacrifice it took to earn it. He understands the power that he has. But when the next generation inherits that power, that money, they squander it because they want to prove that they are up to the task. You see what's going on? And this is a natural human process. It happens all the time.
Makes you wonder if it's worth leaving a large legacy to kids.
Yeah, well, that's why a lot of people say that it's bad to give them a big legacy. It's better to just like leave them with just a little bit so that they can struggle on their own, because the struggle a lot of times builds character. if you've never
Yeah.
struggled, you're not going to have much of a character, and that's the truth. Mhm. So
It
anyway,
was
then
some-
great
yeah,
talking to
thanks.
you. And where are
Yeah.
you at, by the way?
Midland, Texas, home of George Bush.
Well, say hi to George for me, then I take it. You take it easy, okay, man?
All right, thanks, man.
Thanks. Fedor, how's it going?
Hey, Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine. What's on your mind, my man?
So, yeah, I think I just wanted to say that I hope you're not fine physically, but also mentally. But judging by the joke you just made, I think you're on the up. Am I right?
Yeah, it's great to interact with people. That's the thing that I miss so much. Not interacting with enough people. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
I wanted to ask if it's gonna be too late to go to Russia when I finished my master's degree in about 2 years. Should I move now? Or
Who knows what'll happen in 2 years? Anything can happen. Okay, don't worry about it. Just continue doing what you think is best for you at this time. Because right now nobody can make any plans for anything. Okay, so the smart thing is just to ignore everything that's going on, unless it directly affects you, of course, and just keep on living your life as best you can, because you can't control it. Okay. It's too late to be positioning yourself for anything. Now is just keep on going. Okay. I mean, that would be my suggestion. If you're studying now, just keep on studying until you get your degree. Okay. Because if you don't see an opportunity, an obvious opportunity that you can exploit, then, just keep on going where you're at. Because, and watch what's going on, because I have to emphasize this, and I've said this many times before. This is world historical. What we are experiencing now, the changes that are happening, this is world historical, because I'm coming to the understanding, and I'm going to talk about this tomorrow, that we are experiencing the Third World War. This is the Third World War, okay? And it's been going on for a while now. And now the masks are off, and people are with all these sanctions that happened yesterday and today, right? That they kicked out a bunch of diplomats, Russian diplomats from Europe, and more sanctions and more bullshit, and no more buying coal and all kinds of crap. The masks are off, okay? And, we're really in a war, but the thing is, we always think of war as, tanks shooting each other, but there are now different kinds of war. And I realize that I'm a soldier in this information war.
Yes, because that one's actually happening.
I beg your pardon?
No, just go on. Yeah, because we may not just wanted to confirm that even there's no NATO invasion or like pushback, but there's definitely the information war. That's obvious.
And there's the economic war. It's war on multiple fronts: cultural war, propaganda. It's incredible. Okay, so this is a full spectrum war. It's not just military. Okay, and you have to understand that, unfortunately, in this situation, you are eventually going to have to choose sides. And so the best thing you can do is think to yourself, okay, where do I ultimately want to wind up? And if I'm on the other side of the fence, wherever I am, how can I get the most advantage so that my life later on will be the best it can be? And you see, that would be the only advice I can give you. But at the end of this war, which will be several years, by the way, this is going to take a long time. And we haven't even started with the main show, which is, of course, China, USA. That war is going to be a hot war, a kinetic war, as they call it now. And it's going to be amazing, man. I mean, the Americans are not going to fight the Russians, but they are going to fight the Chinese militarily. And it is going to happen in a year or two. And we're just working up to the main show. This is like the opening act. Okay, you got to understand. This is the opening act. This is not the main show. What?
Holy cow! I just said so. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. Okay. What are you studying, by the way?
Interpreting Russian.
Oh, yeah. Which languages?
Russian, English.
Very useful. Very useful. Yeah. Good luck to you, Fedor. And and I'll catch you later. Okay.
One short last thing. My mom is ethnically Russian, and we're staying in Germany. and she transferred to my bank account 9,000 euros because she's like scared that the state will come. But anyway, you think? But I'm kind of ashamed to ask this. But now I got 9,000 euros. I could, but I shouldn't like do anything with it, right? That wouldn't be.
Well, you could do what I would do, which is, go find a really good drug dealer and a really good brothel, cocaine and hookers. That's the way to go. No, I mean, seriously, I can't give you any kind of financial advice.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But the smart thing long term is to invest in rubles. That's pretty clear. Okay. The ruble is going to be a very, very powerful currency. And I think that is part of the reason for this huge war that we're about to have. Okay. So that's what I would say. But I can't give you any financial advice, and you figure out, you do you. Okay. The only financial advice I can tell you is that, you never regret hookers and cocaine, man. There's a saying in Spanish, lo comido y lo bailado no te lo quita nadie, which means literally what you've eaten and what you've danced, no one can take away from you. Okay. That's a very bad translation, but you get the spirit, Yeah. I mean, you have a good time and that's yours forever. So
True.
And later on your mother will kill you, but that's later. Anyway, take it easy, man.
Yeah.
Good talking
Thanks,
to you.
man. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Hey, Yannick, Yannick, this bastard is in like paradise. He sent me a video and it was rainy, but it looked fantastic, man. How's it going?
It's Mr. Bastard, please.
Oh, Mr. Bastard, sorry.
It's actually going quite well, except I've got these little annoying fucking moths flying all over the light. I guess first world problems. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but you had mentioned something in the earlier podcast today about putting me as a mod, and I'm looking at all the assholes in the chat, and I really want to go to town.
And you really want to be a mod? Okay, I'll set it up for you. I can't do it right now.
No, it's all good. I'm seeing a bunch of pricks just repeating. They must have bots or something.
Probably.
But yeah, what a beautiful place to be. Seriously, Thailand has been a neutral country, has never been colonized and everything. It's you got to do as the locals do, and they're very particular about their things. I mean, you can't do anything disrespectful to the king, or you'll end up like 20 years in jail and everything. But you know what? All things considered, when I look at how things are going right now, it's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
So when are you coming over?
In those terms. Yeah. That's the thing. You have to think of it as the lesser of two evils. Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, I'll definitely set you up as a mod on YouTube channels. Yeah.
All
okay,
good. All
anything
good.
Else?
I'm not taking any more of your time. That's just what I wanted to slip in there.
Okay. Take it easy, man.
Cheers.
Hey, Roberto, how's it going?
How's it going, my friend? I just wouldn't want to take a lot of your time. I just want to first of all to meet you, to talk to you directly, because I just joined yesterday. So
thank you very much.
A friend of mine was telling me about your channel, and I got hooked to your channel now. Now I'm addicted to you, man. No, it's really, I really liked it. Really, honestly, I do really like it a lot.
Thank you very much. That's so kind of you to say. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, because I've seen a lot of like this crap on YouTube and stuff like that, and you seem like a really be very very entertaining. First of all, because that's for sure, but also
that's
very
the whole point of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great. I really enjoy everything you do, and I'm kind of like just watching all the other videos that you have on Patreon, because they're really interesting. And I just wanted to ask you something really quick, because I don't want to take a lot of your time, because
sure, go ahead.
This Bucha massacre that just happened a couple of days ago, yesterday, whenever it was, it's really, really hard. Do you think this will eventually convince? No, I don't think it's going to happen, but do you think it's going to convince NATO to have some kind of like participation into this kind of war? Or because
no, I think that window is pretty much closed. And I think that it was really interesting, because right after this situation happened, the Pentagon released a statement basically saying that we should wait and see and find out who's responsible. I mean, they were not jumping on the bandwagon that Russia evil, And so that signals to me that the U.S. Defense Department does not want to get involved in this war at all. And it's smart of them because you see, like I said before in the presentation, in the broadcast rather, the Ukrainian army was trained to a NATO standard. And they were, and they have shown themselves to be really good fighters, no question. I mean, a lot of them you can call them Nazis or whatever, but you can't say that they're bad fighters or that they're not prepared or they don't have balls, because they got all of them in spades, right? But they got their asses handed to them by the Russians. And I think that the Pentagon and everybody has been watching this war very, very carefully. And so they're very leery of getting involved with the Russians, because the Russians have, they beat the Ukrainians hard. And so, and a lot of people are just coping and pretending that they didn't and all the rest of it, and say, oh, they withdrew from Kiev and blah, blah, and saying all kinds of nonsense, but they're winning. It's just as simple as that.
No, that's a funny thing.
Of annihilating the main army of the Ukraine, which is going to be horrible, but that's what happens in war. I mean, the war is horrible. But the point I want to make is that, see, the Americans, they have very good intelligence about what's going on in Ukraine. I have no doubt in my mind that they have direct communication with all of the information coming out of Ukraine, and military information. And so they know. And so they want no part of a war with Russia. Sending weapons and stuff, sure, but boots on the ground, getting involved, airplanes in the skies rather.
It's really sad, Gonzalo, because I'm originally from Italy, and all Europe and especially Italy, it's always been a very peaceful country and everything. We never participated in any kind of war, and right now we're basically saying that we're peaceful by sending a bunch of weapons. And I just, it just really doesn't make any sense. And it just this narrative is I've never experienced. I'm actually kind of glad that I'm not in Italy, because I'm in Spain right now. I live in Barcelona. But the whole situation, especially here in Europe, like you said, I was watching one of your videos on Patreon saying that whomever lives in the West should definitely pick up another country to live in, because it's going to be a hell pretty soon.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe if you have any suggestion to other country. I know that you suggested kind of poor country, because they're not gonna mess with the poor countries. But maybe if you do, I was thinking about it. There was a gentleman before, was I think calling from Thailand. And Thailand was it was kind of in the back of my mind. It was I was thinking about it, because I was well, but I don't know because I know you travel a lot, so I don't know if you have any specific suggestions or anything.
Well, I can't tell you now, but when I get there, which will be in a few months, and then I'll tell you. Okay. I don't mean to be cute. It's just for various reasons I can't.
I know.
To go now, but
that's fine. That's fine. I appreciate everything you do, Gonzalo. Keep it up, okay?
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Gonzalo.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay, guys, I'm going to call it a stream, because I'm kind of beat, to tell you the truth, and I only went an hour and a half, but I'm kind of out of it. And so the other people who are waiting to ask questions, I'm going to do the same thing either tomorrow, Thursday, or certainly Friday. I'm going to keep on ongoing with this thing. Because like I explained to my Patreon subscribers, usually what I do for the webinar tier subscribers, I do a Sunday broadcast, and I take a lot of questions and all the rest of it. But now, because of reasons, March was sort of totally disorganized, and sort of getting back on track insofar as my Patreon content is concerned. But anyway, there are a lot of old videos. I've got 250 videos on Patreon, so go check them out. So anyway, but I'm going to continue with these Q&A, because I really enjoy it, and if everything goes well, I should turn on the camera tomorrow or the day after, because I just have to figure it out to make sure that it works properly. Okay, so anyway, guys, thanks very much for everything, and oh, and by the way, for the super chat, I'm going to do on Saturday a dedicated super chat show that I'm going to go through every single super chat I've gotten if it's for 50 cents or $1,000, I'm going to go through all of them on Saturday, because so many of you have been very kind to throw money my way, and I've been remiss by not thanking you. Okay, so I will definitely do that on Saturday. Okay, and yeah, anything else? No. Okay, and I'll definitely, Yannick, I'll definitely make you a mod so that you can, crack the whip. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you next time.